All right, welcome back to our React newsletter tutorial. We are now starting on the back end. We're going to be writing our just a really simple endpoint in Node.js and Restify. Um, so yeah, we're using Restify. Me personally, I like Express, but Restify is really good. I like it. At least the time that I spent on it, I really like it. Um, So yeah, we're using Restify. We're going to create a simple endpoint called subscribe that the front end is expecting. And basically the endpoint is going to take in the email in the body of the request, and the email is going to be shot off to MailChimp in a request call to the to MailChimp, and then MailChimp will return a response. Then we take that response and then throw it back to the UI to the front end. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into the code. Um, we have a different project here. It is not the same as our front end project. We're going to make an Axios call from here to our URL or route that we're going to create in here in the server file. Okay. Um, so this is our API project, and we're going to go ahead and uh, import our Restify library here. So let's go ahead and start. Okay, so now we have initialized Restify in our project. Let's go ahead and create a server. Restify dot create server. Okay, next thing we need to do, we need to have the server listen on a certain port. In this case, the front end is expecting port 8080. So listen 8080 function, callback function. All right, we're just gonna console log something out. I actually have a message here. Let's go ahead and copy that. All right, and let's go ahead and npm start. When you download this project, you clone it. Make sure you do an npm install to get all of the packages that are in package.json here. There's not many. I actually just noticed I forgot to add the node daemon. I forgot to save it, so I'll put that in there. But I'm using node daemon to auto refresh the server anytime I make changes. So if I hit Control S and then it reset or refreshes the whole project, it's pretty neat. It's very easy, extremely easy. And for me, I went ahead and I set the node daemon um, script inside of here, or the call inside of the start script. So it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Okay, so now we got Restify listen on port 8080. Okay. The next thing we need to do is we need to create an endpoint, a post endpoint, and it's going to be called subscribe, which is what the front end is looking for. So we're going to grab our server, and we're making a post call. So call dot post, and our endpoint is going to be called slash subscribe. All right, and we're going to actually pass in a function called subscribe that we are not using yet. We haven't made it yet. And let's go ahead and create um, that function right now. Okay, so function subscribe, right? So everything should be good. Everything looks to be working. All right, excellent. So Restify, this function here, it takes in some parameters. So the request, okay, the response, and also something called next. This thing is unique to Restify. Um, basically, each function has a basically there's a like a handler chain, and basically Restify is making you call next. It's making you call next inside of your in your functions. Um, so yeah, just go look that up on the Restify if you want more information on that, but you do have to pass it in. Um, all right, so next we are going to let's go ahead and grab the email from the body. So the first thing we want to do is we want to grab that email. So we want to grab the request from the body. All right, and we want to get the email. All right, looks good. So if I made a call right now to this endpoint, it should it should be spitting back. It should be returning back that email. Right. So let's go back to our front end project. Actually, it won't because the front end's expecting the success key. Ah, yes, and then there's the cores issue, which we'll handle that in just a bit. Okay, so it's not gonna work yet. All right. So point is, we're getting the email. Okay. Speaking of cores, let's go ahead and take care of that because that's a big issue when you're trying to access a URL that's outside of your domain. Um, so this will allow us to get past that same origin policy that's associated with server requests. So I found this package called the cores middleware, or Restify cores middleware. So it's in the package.json. It's right here. So we're gonna call this cores middleware, and we're gonna include it in here. Okay. So now we have our cores middleware initialized. So now we are going to enable cores now. So let's do that. Var cores is equal to cores middleware. And I'm going to allow port the localhost from port 3000 to access the our endpoints here. So we're going to pass in origins. We're going to get our origins, and it's going to be http / localhost port 3000. Okay, and let's close that off. And let's also we need to do this server pre cores pre-flight, handle our pre-flight conditions here, and one more thing, the actual cores request, cores dot actual. Okay. The next thing we need to do is I actually just realized I forgot to use I forgot to uh, use the body parser to parse the post data from the body of our calls. So we're gonna go server.use, and it's gonna be, we're gonna pass in Restify dot, it's a plugin, so plugins dot body parser. It's a function. Okay, looks good. All right, so we have all of that good stuff in there. Let's go ahead and handle our MailChimp stuff now. So we need to use that request library that I mentioned in an earlier video. So we're going to go ahead and use that. Require request. Okay, everything is good so far. Actually, the way this is set up now, we might be able to log out the email now. Nope. Oh, actually we did. It's right here. Good. Good, good, good. Excellent. All right, awesome. So we know that's working. All right. Let's go ahead and we're going to MailChimp. So with MailChimp, you need certain credentials to be able to access their API. One of those credentials, or one of those data points you need is the data center. One of them is the data center, and the other one is also the API key, and the other one is also the list ID, which is the list that you're going to subscribe them to. Okay, so when you're setting these settings, typically for me, I put it in a config file, and I place the config file like outside the root of the project, and then I import the config file into the project here, and then I place those settings in here. Um, maybe I'll have like a .json config file, or maybe if I'm working with PHP or something like that. So typically you don't want to just throw your API keys and passwords and stuff into the code base. I would not recommend doing that. Okay, so we'll come back to that. All right. The next thing we need to do is we need to set up our options for our request. So I'm just gonna go ahead and copy this stuff in here. So the first one is our URL. The second one is the method post. The next one is our header, the header of the request. And last but not least, the body. So basically, we're sending, MailChimp is expecting email underscore address and also a status of subscribe. So we're going to send all this data to MailChimp. Okay. Next, let's go ahead and open up a request, and it's passing that options object, and we're going to have a function that takes in an error, takes in a response, and also the body. All right, and also let's go ahead and write our next thing here. All right. Let's go ahead and do a try catch. And do error. Okay. And in our error, we're just going to create a error response object, and this one's going to be called error, and we'll just say there was an error with your request. All right, and then we'll return the message. It's really for the developer's sake, see what was going on here. All right, and then we're gonna send back that response object, response error object. There you go. All right, next, let's go ahead and handle if everything is good. So response object. All right, and let's go ahead and return that response object. All right, so let's check the status code from MailChimp. So we're going to say if the response dot status code is equals to 200, that means everything is good. Then we're going to set the response object to a success, and we're just going to say subscribe using, and we're just going to say email, the email that you passed in, and return a message of json.parse.response.body. Right, else the response object is going to be an error key. Okay, and this is going to be error trying to subscribe. And we're going to say our email that we passed in earlier. Please try again. Oh, what did I do? That's what. Okay, and then we're going to send back a message key as well, and then this one's just going to be, we're going to JSON parse the response body. Okay. All right. Outside of the key, these values here, I'll show you in the next video how to set up that MailChimp stuff. But because typically a data center is like something like US1, and then you would it's like US1 through, I forgot the last one. Okay. So let's go ahead and see what happens if I type in an email and hit send, unable to subscribe, which is exactly what should happen. And there you go. It's giving me an error key missing. So that's good. So the API is working good. It'll work after we give it the right API keys and such, which we'll go over in the next video. But I think I am going to stop it around here. Um, Another note I just realized, also if you if you were to do something like this in production, you also want to make sure that we're doing a server side check right here for, I mean, a client side check for the emails and make sure it's valid here. But you also want to make sure you do it on the server side because you can't rely on the client. The client having JavaScript enabled, which typically they almost always do, but you never know. And I also think MailChimp does a check as well, but I haven't. I'm not sure. Um, it does check for spam, like test emails and stuff like that. It does do that. But it's always good to have some type of validation on the server side. So like I would probably do some type of validator check um, before I even shoot off a request, just see if it's an email or not. Um, but um, I think that is about it right now. We have our API up and going, all the codes in GitHub, if you need it. So stay tuned for the next video. We're gonna work on the MailChimp, just getting our keys and stuff like that, our keys and data center and the list ID and stuff like that. So I'll show you how to do that. So stay tuned for the next video.